the December 7th, 2023 Historic District Commission meeting for the city of Saugatuck. Sarah, are we okay on recording? Or I keep going and rattle on?
It's supposed to come through the speakers and the phone came through my computer, so. That doesn't even have my check. So we'll just,
Go with it? Okay, sounds good. So I've called us to order. Could you please help us with roll call?
Straker,
Here?
Lee, Narza,
Here.
Donahue,
Here.
Carmen,
Here.
Godfrey. Here. And Patterson.
Here. Thank you very much. We have quorum. Are there any agenda changes, additions, or deletions?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of the regular meeting held November 2nd, 2023? And if so, are there any comments or do I have a motion to approve them?
I move to approve
Second.
to the minutes
Okay.
of the regular meeting held on November 2nd, 2023.
Thank you. And second?
Second,
Okay.
sir.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Public comments on any of the agenda items? No. Okay. I'm going to wedge in here before we get, since commission comments are way down at the bottom, I'm going to wedge in here an introduction. Thank you, Russ, for joining us. It's such a value to have a council member part of this group. It's really been great over the last 4 or 5 council folks that have joined us. So thank you. I think it makes a difference in sort of joining the mission and creating consistency. So thank you. And I know you've had a bit of a stint on here in the past. So
Yeah.
maybe share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Straker. Very glad to be here. I was the Planning Commission representative for the City Council for the past 2.5 years. I am now filling the role that Garnett Lewis was previously filling here. And as you said, I previously served on this commission back in the late 1990s. And a lot of activity back then with the Historic District Commission. So I very much respect this commission and the work that it does in the community. And my home is in the Historic District. So I'm very familiar with the some of the ins and outs of all of this. So I look forward to working with the commission. I've been on city council now. I just was reelected my 2nd term. I was previously on council back in the late 90s before I moved to Chicago. My family moved back here. My wife and daughter moved back here in 2020, March of 2020, right when the pandemic hit. That was a planned move. It was just accelerated with the pandemic. And my father-in-law, Charlie Reese, who some of you may have met, he's around town quite a bit. He's an artist, lives with us as well. So I'm just looking forward to serving on the commission with the commissioners, and I'm going to be listening and learning. I'm sure a lot of things have changed since my last experience here. I will say that when I was here back in front of the commission back, I think it was earlier this year, maybe, with the property at 647 Butler. And I just really have to, again, state my pleasure with the professionalism and the review that was done for the property. I learned some things from that experience, and to be here tonight, I'm going to be carrying that forward in terms of the way it was approached. So I just kudos again to the commission for the work that was done on that. It really did make a difference in terms of the streetscape where I live. And just, it was a good project. It's better because of this commission's work. So
Thank you so much. We're delighted to have you. Yeah.
pleasure to be here.
Is there any unfinished business? Okay, we'll go ahead and start with new business. And the only item on tonight's agenda is 254 Francis. I will say one thing, which I do sometimes at the beginning of a meeting when we have new commissioners. So I'll just set the table. Both Pat, you've been in front of this group quite a few times, but I'll set the table just to say what we normally do is if there's anything that's not included in the packet that you want to make sure you mention and explain a little bit further, please feel free to do that. I'll then go around the table and ask every commissioner if they have any questions or clarifying comments so that everyone has their voice heard. And we'll open up for group conversation and then call for a vote. So, and then also a reminder, We really try hard. I know all of us are on this same page. We really try hard to not say things like, I like that, or I don't like that, because that's a subjective comment. We try to make sure everything is related to our guidelines and the adherence to guidelines and the interpretation of those. So with that little preamble, come on down.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Sure, yeah, thank you.
You know, the grid configuration will be the divided lights, simulated divided lights. That's not the grid pattern, obviously, the grid pattern that shows on. the plan.
Excuse me. I don't know who this
Oh,
individual is.
yeah, go ahead and, sorry, introduce yourself, sorry.
Very good. I figured that was
We
the
were-
case, but wanted
No,
to.
it's a good call. I was being too casual.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
representing.
That's nothing to the extent that you can, we can talk about it, just because we are trying to record it.
So I have that, I brought a sample of the siding we're gonna be using on the units. We're gonna be using wood siding. As I know with no simulated siding. That we don't like the wood grain, so I got some cedar. This happens to be fine, but that's what we'll be doing now. These are wood, wood shake, with the shakes are showing on there. Just filled out the application. Thing I want to talk about, I guess. So LP now. LP now, which I know John, if you're familiar with, LP now has come out with a smooth siding, all right? That being said, when you paint it, you get this feeling, and I just want to make sure that that's going to be something that's going to be acceptable. It's not really wood grain, that's how you put a coat of paint on it. That's how it comes out. It's not an actual, you know, imitation wood grain. It's when you put a coat of paint on it, that's how it comes out. And I know that's been a big issue here, so.
Anything else you want to say about the plans or the elevations?
No,
I'm sure we'll have questions about all those materials and the windows, but
not a problem.
if you have nothing else, maybe I'll start on this side. John, do you want me to start with you? We'll give Russ this on the end, so we'll maybe end with him in meeting one. If you want to pass, and I come back to you too.
Yeah, pass on me.
Yeah, I only had one, Russ, let me get to the picture. The windows that are not fully shown at the grade, are those egress windows?
Yeah, you have to be.
Okay, and are they gonna be covered with any kind of thing over the top, or are they gonna be?
But I'm not using a bubble. What I use now, depending on it is, I put a grate on there. Okay, not a bubble.
Okay, so
I'll
a
put it-
grid,
Mhm,
just,
a grid system.
okay,
You know, you never know how that's gonna lay out till you dig the foundation, how the window is.
Yep.
We may pour those as window wells now out of concrete this time.
Mhm.
And we'll set this, we have these grates that sit right down in there, so they don't, but that will not be a bubble.
got it, thanks. That was all I had.
That will not be a bubble. Good question. I didn't think about that.
I say I had the same question worrying about a plastic bubbles, okay.
Yeah, I don't like those either, so.
Laura?
I'm just trying, thank you. I'm trying to understand, I've walked by that property so many times.
Mhm.
It will be really nice. The land between the house and Francis Street now is a pretty big lot.
Yeah, but it's got a corner, so you got two setbacks.
Right, so I'm trying to understand on this plan, it's 20 by 7 on Holland.
Mhm.
What will it be on Francis? Do you know?
I think it's.
I'm just trying to figure out how much land will be left. Is it on the plan and I've missed it?
Yeah. I don't think it is on Holland.
May not have that up on there, they put on there.
Thank you for confirming.
Is that 40 feet in there, Ryan? I think it might be 35 or 40 in that. Yeah.
I think they have a setback drawn on there, so there's only 20 foot 7 inches to the corner of.
27, right.
That dark line that's.
It's, yeah, it's probably 20 foot, yeah, 20 foot setback all the way around.
24, okay,
Mhm.
that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
Thank you, for letting me go last so I can hear from others, so not putting me on the spot immediately, but, something, yeah, so I do have some questions. I thought there was a document in the packet online that actually showed this in relation to the neighboring property.
There was something in there.
Yeah.
I thought there was, I didn't see it in our, here.
There it is.
Um,
John's got the survey. Yeah.
Oh, did I?
You probably have
I missed it?
don't you?
It's probably-
Oh, there it is.
Might have
Thank
been
you.
back
Thank you,
something.
Thank you. I'm new, so.
That's all right.
Yeah, I live right around the corner from this property. I walk by this. I've forgotten over the years, probably thousands of times. So that vacant lot has been vacant for my entire life. And I know the neighbors quite well that own the, Pershing house, which is next door. That's how I know it. I have stories about that house, about getting busted by the cops, doing stuff that I shouldn't do. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But what was interesting to me is that the property had been sold a number of years ago to when they split it, and then the people that own the Pershing house sold the property, and it's been vacant. There's a beautiful tree in it.
Mhm.
So it's a nice corner. What was interesting, I wanted to share something just kind of from a historical perspective. That is the corner
That's right.
Mhm.
back in the day. If you've not seen that, it was a service station. Yeah, and I could
Station on her.
yeah, and I can remember as a kid that the part of the cement was still there, walking through it. So I only present that because the house that's there has changed a bit. But when we talk about windows and some of the elevations, that's kind of where I think. And so it looks like there's some respect to the historical presence in that neighborhood. And I think about Butler too, and some of the things that this commission did with that property is what are the sight lines, what are the views? And of course, we're gonna lose a empty view from the lot, but is the property in scale and keeping with those properties around it? The house that's right next door, that's owned by Huron. So I know all the neighbors and I know the properties quite well. So I'm just want to make sure that it's respectful of, some of the scale as well. And that's something that's why I was looking for this document, is because it's maybe more of a planning discussion in terms of the relationship to the other properties in terms of size and density and so forth. So that's probably more a question for the administrator for that review, correct? Meaning all the setbacks and everything
Mm-mm.
else.
Not necessarily.
No?
I think This is
Okay.
well within your purview.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Gardner, it's just a little bit, so from your historic district guidelines. If you look on. Well, they're on both page
Yeah, I'll
4
pick it
and
up.
5.
Pedestrian scale.
Under the guidelines for new construction, it covers a lot of those things.
Okay.
Patio, you have siding and massing.
Thanks, Patrick.
Pedestrian scale. Streetscape compatibility, those are all things that certainly are well within your purview to assess, under the new construction guidelines.
Thank you, Ryan. So from my perspective, what would be important for me to see would be a graphic elevation with the properties next, both to the west as well as to the north, the Pershing house and Huron's house, just kind of get me a better sense. This is helpful to see the plans that have been drawn, but the scale doesn't really, maybe that's just my limitation, being able to see the scale with the other properties and the other buildings that are next to it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have no concerns about the construction materials. I mean, Mr. Murphy's done a number of projects in town, so I have no concerns about materials but more about the historical. That's the right word to use.
The integration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good word, integration.
Thank you. John?
It's almost centered, it's centered on the entire lot, pretty much. I mean.
Yeah.
It's pretty equal around,
Mhm.
so I'm getting a good sense of the massing, and I think it does fit the neighborhood. Doors, I was looking for door,
Yeah, I'm gonna, there'll be probably, not probably from a pellet door smooth. I think I noted that in there, there'll be a
Okay.
smooth door,
okay,
no wood
What part of the window package?
Got the window package from Pella.
Okay,
The garage door is kind of hardest thing to find, it's smooth the door off.
yeah,
But I think I found when I put it in.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was, it's crazy. You wouldn't think a smooth garage door.
It's really hard to find.
They do them all with some type of grain on them.
But they can do the style that you have in the plan.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
That was my only question. Windows, you said the pattern will change, but
Pattern.
yeah,
Probably
yep,
some plan.
yep.
It's the simulated right of light from Pella.
yeah. I don't have any further questions.
I'll just add a couple things. Confirming, I'm frantically going through my pile. On your cut sheets, is your standing seam metal roof that you're speccing is true standing seam, correct?
True.
Is there a cut sheet in for that or no?
I don't know if I did put it in there to be
I
honest
didn't
with you.
remember seeing it. I see the,
I know I had it. I probably may have gotten that stuff in.
okay, we may want to just add that
Sure.
to the packet and that can be administratively added.
I'll get that to you. then.
Because we usually, I'll just say this for the recording, because we approve pure standing or true standing seam,
Yes.
not stamped barn. So I know that's not what this is, but
Right.
just
That's fair enough.
for clarity. So this material that you sent around,
Cedar,
this is cedar, so
that's gonna go where the shakes are.
that's the shakes.
Mhm.
Okay, so everything material wise is LP trim and siding smooth except for cedar, which is this.
You just can't get anything
Right,
that's smooth and they don't look that.
right.
God knows that. I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta shake them.
Well,
They,
and just, I guess for the record, the other piece that you sent around that you were concerned about, like, I still think that's infinitely, but that looks like painted wood to me.
Yeah.
You're always gonna have some striation, whatever you want to call it. It's never gonna be perfect. Like that's not the goal. The goal is to have it not look like it was stamped. Yeah.
just to add to that, it looks more stamped if it is a glossy paint.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if that is a consideration for you or not. The more matte you can make it while it's still washable,
Right.
that's the kind of,
This is kind of just a note to call out from our consultant in the comments. Because this has sort of come up before. Comments made, the style of the proposed dwelling appears to be compatible with the design and appearance of dwellings in the vicinity. While there'll be a noticeable impact on the development of a blah, blah, blah lot, the proposed building should blend into the existing content. I completely agree with the last part of that. I also agree with the front part of it, but I don't think that matters. This could be a modern structure and it could still have the same massing and presence on the lot. And I think that's okay. So I'm only saying that as one person, but this could have been a modern house. And that sentence concerns me because modern is compatible in our historic district. So I'm just that's just a note. I think the comments are not necessarily, they're comments. They're not always sort of to be taken literally. I think it's a bit tall from the east elevation. I know it's probably within the technical height restriction, obviously, or it wouldn't have come here. It doesn't feel tall in any of the other elevations, but the front and the back. My only sort of salvation for that is I think it's about what's to the left of it and what's behind it, but I also think it's what across from it. And across the street is a taller house. So I bring up what we talked about on a Lake Street property that was new construction somewhere along the lines of 700 Lake Street, the one that's for sale. We were really conscious of the height next to the massing next to and the three houses across the street and the right. So I think you're right to call out that relationship, but I would also add the one across the street. So it feels high to me, but I don't know that it really bothers me that much in terms of like compliance. And then I'm just gonna say it. Simulated divided light. Which for this commission, we also always point to these windows, which are simulated divided light, and that is the same technique and product. So just because there's a couple different words and descriptions in the packet. So thank you for doing that.
That's why I bring the sample.
Thank you. That's great. So that was a lot of statement, not a lot of question, just for clarity.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment. That's exactly where my thoughts were. I wasn't as well articulated as you were, but that is my, I'm not able to visualize that easily without a picture of it, graphic of it. The house that's immediately to the west of it is a 1.5 story. It's a yellow house, and then the purging house is a 1-story brown. Our home is a 1.5. Of course, Justin Heath on the corners, that's not even in consideration, but I share the same concern with the east elevation. When I first looked at it, I was like, that seemed to me to be out of scale with the yellow house and the brown house. Now it's within probably zoning. My expectation is that's probably within the zoning code. But in terms of the overall scale to the other properties, I'm not able, as Chairman Straker said, in my mind too, it looks large. But it may not be once it's actually, if I can see it in the visual representation.
I mean, my thing
versus other
is,
properties. I don't know if other commissioners are thinking the same.
So
thing,
you're
but-
saying like in comparison to the homes on the, are we talking about the roof line this looks like it's gonna be significant.
Yeah, and even though the properties are outside of on the north end of town, as you come into town, the 2 properties that have gone up, the 2 new homes there. And they're not in the historic district, but they are so out of scale from what was there. And that's neither right or wrong. It's just visually out of scale. And that's, to me, always been an important part of the historic district is to try to maintain that human scale and relation to other properties.
Just to clarify, at this point, they haven't submitted for zoning approval, so.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what the height is, I'm sure.
Do that at the meeting.
Yeah.
Sure, Pat would
Right.
Yeah.
enlighten you on what the height is, or what the pitch ratio is, or something along those lines.
I mean, we're within, I forget what's the height in the area.
Well, the height limit across the entire city is 30.
36,
feet.
32.
Gable style roof, the average between even the rich can't go higher than 28.
John Hurst, would you plan, kept it within the range.
Okay.
And the chimney as well looks like it really is fairly tall.
So chimneys are kind of a accessory piece that can be higher. so-
Yeah.
You have to follow, how close you are to the roof. Chimney, top of the chimney, so many feet away because of drag and things like that.
Right.
That's kind of dictated by that more so than the other things.
So just one more comment along those lines, the illusion, it might be tall literally, but the illusion is shorter because it's a 1.5 story from this east elevation. And that gable of the dormer coming out of the roof is where your eye goes. So I feel like it's more relatable to the street and to people versus the true height of it. If that were a flat front all the way straight up, it would be a monster.
Mhm.
Right.
well,
And I think that's what happens when you get a drawing like this, there's no dimension.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. The way that is gonna sit on the corner, the 3/4 view is almost the view you would want to look at, I think.
Mhm.
Because the 3/4 view is what you see when you're going out of town, kind of when you come down the hill.
Right,
And right now, this is kind of like a big forehead.
right, there,
But I don't know that you ever look at it that straight on.
Mm.
I also think, like, I don't remember, did you specify a color for the shingle?
no, we haven't really got to this.
That's one example where like the whole
We can
palette,
change the whole palette. right?
that would really make a difference,
Mhm.
like good or bad,
Right,
in terms of the mass and heaviness of
agree.
that roof from this elevation,
Mhm.
in addition to the height itself.
Mhm. Okay.
Like if you had, like you're saying, like if it was black, it would hit you right.
Well, if the whole house was white and that's black.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's why, like I say, I don't have the whole context for
Mhm.
the CMF to know. Do they have a,
We haven't really, we want to get everything approved and things like that before we start doing a color selection and things like that.
That house is really gonna change that corner.
Mhm.
Because that empty lot has been a real privilege,
Mhm.
really. So, I think that's why questioning on these details is important.
Understand.
I mean, last comment is, when you do look at it sort of 3/4 view, you're also seeing, you're mixing up the massing of that roof. You're seeing standing seam, a
Right.
couple different roof lines,
The
then
bridge to the
shingle.
walls.
You have this. Never remember the name.
Band boards,
Yeah, thank you.
freeze boards.
That are mixing everything up a little bit. I don't know why I'm holding this up when this is up there.
Well, you're pointing to it.
Is there,
Yeah, Chairman Straker, the only other thing I would add, and just in relation to the other properties that are within that, 3-4 block area, many of the homes are very simple in terms of exterior. There's not a lot of variation and 3 or 4 different sidings, roofing types and things of that nature. So that, in my mind, is the historic character of the neighborhood. I think about the Burkhalt's house down at the corner of Beer and Spear and Butler. The old White House at the corner of Spear. My house, we have these ugly bricks that were put on there by my great uncle. We don't know where the heck those came from, but anyway, the corner house, it's just very simple architecture. Even the house next door to it. So that's kind of where my visual sense goes, is the simplicity of the homes. Not to say that we can't have something more visually interesting, but I just, all the different surfaces seem to me to be busier than the properties around them. And that may just be the color, which is being discussed, or maybe it's the design. I don't know if that makes any sense,
Mhm.
what I'm saying.
does?
Yes.
And I'm not an architect, I'm not a contractor, so if I use words that are not appropriate, please help correct me. But
I tend to not look at it as, I guess I first asked the question, is it presenting a sense of false history?
which is,
Which I think the materials, that's why materials are so important, because I don't think it does. I think it feels authentic to, yes, it looks historic, but I don't think it's presenting a sense of false history. So the sort of a mashup of materials doesn't bother me. It would if it was trying to do it in an embellished way. I think that detail on top of the chimney is a little embellished, but that's like such a minor thing. But otherwise, I think it's pretty true to what it's trying to be. We have, we can call a motion and vote on this. We can talk more about it. We can see if there's options to lower that pitch. I don't know if there is, probably not, usability wise. It doesn't rise to the level of concern for me to not support it. Just because of, I think, the way you're coming down to view it. But I understand the concern. What would y'all like to do?
Chairman Straker, I didn't expect to talk this much at this meeting. I was going to be in
Okay.
listening mode, but
great.
hopefully I'm helpful. I looked at item 3 in Mr. Jurassic's report, compatibility of siting and massing. Item C, particularly if there's a significant variation in siting or in height and bulk from the immediately surrounding buildings, which creates a material adverse impact on the character of that area, the commission may make recommendations to the planning commission and or the ZBA concerning height, massing, and placement on the lot of the new construction. what I'm struggling with and what I've been trying to articulate is it's difficult for me to see that from that elevation in relation to other properties. I can describe them in my mind, but I'd like to. That's where it may be compatible with this, but I'm having a hard time visually seeing it based on what's being presented.
Are you asking the applicant to create a render?
Yes.
Okay.
Something that could visually see this from the different angles that you've described, as well as the properties that are immediately adjacent to it, which this speaks to as well.
I mean, it's gonna be higher than the house next door,
Right.
It's a,
Yeah.
right.
I just don't know how you're gonna. Solve that.
I don't think it's just the one next door. It's
Right.
all over.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's,
I guess maybe what a render would solve, or the itch that would scratch would be putting it in context. You're gonna see that it's higher, but then it could inform the other material choices
Mhm.
to maybe not feel so tall and proud and maybe feel a little longer and more grounded,
Mhm.
especially since there is an elevation that's the long side. Maybe that's where you poke at choices for roof color on the shingle. And maybe that's where John Hurst can help in terms of integrating that and making it feel more integrated, even if the size doesn't change. Because we can't tell you to change the size. We can only tell you what we would,
Gotcha.
you're reading the tea leaves of where we would fall on a vote.
just a comment again. We can use this as an example, and I'm not saying that this feels anything like I'm describing, but what we have before us in this community is a challenge of any new home going in, of it being too suburban looking. And I'm not saying this one is, though, I think the real materials, the real wood takes it a long way from being that. You could take an old home and reside it and it would look just like this. So this would fit in our community. But we have to be careful of them starting to feel suburban when they're new. And I'm not saying this does. I think Tim hit it on the mark with it feels authentic.
Fair point. Good point.
Well, and I'd take your comment one step further, and like I didn't say this, but in the realm of trade-offs and give and take, I would take better architecture and things like an accessory, what feels like a one-car garage that was filled in between the house and the garage, which could have been done and was done a lot. That could have been a two-car garage with a full two-car
Right.
garage door, and it instantly feels suburban.
Yep.
So like I would take those bits in combination as being more important on the whole than I would the height in relationship to the surroundings, because it could be a two-story house with a two-car garage and a big L shape.
So a lot of comments. That's good. And back to what you said, Russ, I think there are a lot of materials, and that isn't true of a lot of the homes around it. So we can't tell you what to do, but the standing seam doesn't feel necessary to me, and it doesn't feel like it could be the shingle and everything would be a little bit just that much more integrated, where standing seam, that's a newer thing to do it on porches and things like that. It wasn't something that was done a long time ago. That would have been a shingle roof, in my estimation. So
That's my house.
yeah. I mean, it takes one less detail out of someone's excitement maybe, but it could integrate all the elements better to have one less. But we can't tell you not to do that because the standing seam is allowed. Just an observation.
Laura, what were you gonna ask?
You bring up, I think these are all really valid concerns. What does a new piece of construction on kind of a primary corner lot do? what's the net effect of that? And I think that's kind of what we're trying to get to. The piece on top of the chimney, I see in a lot of historic homes. That's an interesting addition. What's the technical name for that?
It's clay, it's a clay cap.
Clay cap. Yeah, you see that on a lot of the older 1920 homes.
Right.
I think it's a nice addition, actually, but I know Tim brought that up, so I wanted to get the right name for it. So
Are you saying that it doesn't look appropriate or you?
I think it does look appropriate. I think it adds a historic piece to it because it is on many of the
Yeah,
older.
and there are
older
new
brick
homes that have them that are overly detailed. That's really simple, and clay is a very simple
Yes,
material.
yeah, it's
so
kind of a nice.
People tend to get really tricky with those and they don't need to be on a house, on a home like this. So that, I think that's appropriate too. I agree with you.
I think all these questions are really valid and very fair. The massing on the property is just sort of what I was trying to understand too, because I like that openness. But I have a good understanding of that.
Chairman Straker, the last thing about that I will comment on is that this has been, as has been mentioned by several of us, a vacant lot as long as I can remember. Played there as a kid. So I'm not opposed to a development there. However, when people come down the street, I mean, I hear this from people all the time. When I come into Saugatuck, all of a sudden my blood pressure goes down, my sense of community comes up and things just kind of feel right. So when I think about a property like this, or really any other one, is it going to continue to encourage people to come here? Is it going to look natural? Is it going to look like this commission, planning commission, any of the boards here that have responsibility for helping get this right have done their job? Is it going to look like that when they come into town? I mean, that was the point that was made with the house at Butler and Spear with the White House. And I had never thought about it until this commission mentioned, when you look down that sidewalk, they'd want to put a fence all the way up to the sidewalk. It was totally, and I had never even thought about, even though I'd grown up with that viewscape, never thought about it. The fact that that's been maintained is part of what I'm talking about. And so here, the challenge for me as a commissioner is this going to continue to encourage people to say, look, they did this right. And of course, the owner and the contractor have their responsibility to get what they want, but I'm also here to represent the community. Does that make sense?
Oh, fair. I mean, it echoes a slight concern that I have about just that corner and the transformation thereof. And again, what's the net effect? Are we enhancing? Are we losing? Where do we come out on that equation?
I think we have to just be careful with that.
We do.
There was a structure there.
The gas station.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's the reason I share. That's the reason I
Still
share.
there, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Um,
Right.
So
Well, to your point too, sorry, to your point, it could be a modern box.
Mhm.
And it's hard to lose your objectivity when it's a modern box in that neighborhood, but we have to, it can be. So this,
that's why I would just encourage us to make a decision on this based on the scale and the factors that influence the scale, which is materiality and detail. So we could vote to table this and ask the architect to come back to address those things because of our concern of how it sits. We could call for a vote.
Did you mention that somebody mentioned a rendering to look at that? Would
Yeah,
that be
I mean, I think that's probably what, if we tabled it tonight, that's what John would probably come back with is addressing those things and then put it in situ with everything else.
It's not gonna show the house next door. I mean, it's not something we can answer, rendering, I guess, so.
I mean, you could do block plans,
Yeah.
just sort of like just black and white massing.
Okay, I'll talk to them.
Because I wouldn't want the homeowner to have to spend a ton of money to get a big old fancy render.
Yeah.
well, I can't think of another home that's come before us that is on a lot like this.
Right.
Usually you can visualize the house next door and behind and across the street. This is very hard to see that.
Well, the biggest change stating the absolute obvious is the trees are gonna come down to do this, and that's what's,
One tree,
that's a
big one.
but
Yeah,
it's a pretty amazing tree.
yeah.
That's what's really gonna change that corner. And have everyone have it sort of have a spotlight on it. So
On that tree, you're not talking about that super ginormous tree on the.
No, there's one like,
On the empty
right in the
lot.
middle.
it literally
Yes,
sits in the
right.
middle of the lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, thank you, because the. big-
That was one right in the middle.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
okay, that's right,
And I,
that's right, yeah.
um,
I might just encourage somebody to make a motion to table this with that in the motion. What are you gonna say?
Yeah,
I'd be happy to support the motion. I'm brand new here, so I'm not sure if I should make the motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Doesn't matter.
So help me with the
Not your
wording.
first rodeo.
there's putting up.
But I want to remain respectful. I'm joining a pretty experienced group here, so I will make a motion that we table this site application. Is that the correct word? Site application, this Historic District Commission application.
Mhm.
To have the applicant come back with a rendering of the site so we can understand the siting and massing in comparison to the surrounding properties.
Somebody mentioned as well as across the
Wait,
street.
hold on, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Discussion?
You just had okay, I just had a question. I thought they also said you wanted to look at the size compared to across the street. Did I hear that?
I feel like that's not realistic to ask.
Keith was.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you
But
turn
hold
that
on,
around?
we have. I feel like that's unrealistic to have them do a render of across the street as well. I think we should look at what's behind it and beside it, and then maybe all just do a walkabout.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted her
And
to
see
do,
that.
that one.
Yeah. Sorry, John. What
That's
were you
all I
saying?
wanted Sarah to do, because that answers maybe your question, that what's across from it. I think we can visualize that.
Did you have anything else to add? Nope. I might just add to the motion in the discussion period. What Russ said, plus. Give some consideration to materiality that help. With the massing story.
Yeah.
That's open-ended enough that we're not being prescriptive to say, yeah.
Would you like me to amend my motion? I'm comfortable with that amendment.
Do you have, I
So
mean,
if I
if you
don't-
have it in the notes, I think
Yeah.
you can, is that okay?
Okay, thank
Is
you.
that a-
Thank
okay.
you.
Either or.
Okay. All it, well done. Sound like an auctioneer. Are we all done? Are we all done? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay,
When's the next meeting? Mr. Green?
January 5th,
Very cool.
4th.
Thank you for being here.
That's right, I won't be
Yeah.
here, again, but I'll get somebody to come.
Okay,
I'll get that done, I'll submit it right away, so.
thank you.
If I can, maybe you guys can do this, if I get it submitted right away in the next week with any changes. Give a chance everybody to look at it, can I get input? I mean, I'm not looking for a vote, I guess, but at least to get input.
I don't feel comfortable doing that.
That's
I
fine.
think, yeah. I'd hate to. Usually if someone sends a commissioner something and it's a one-on-one conversation.
Send it to Ryan, I'm not gonna send it to.
Yeah, okay.
And let him do it, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I'm not gonna send it to everybody, I'll send it to
Yeah.
Ryan. No, no,
Okay,
no.
I thought you meant socialize it
not-
amongst ourselves. Okay,
I'd like to get, maybe if everybody could look at it and just maybe get some input before.
Okay.
Come back.
Great.
You know, holidays come into play in that, so I'm trying to get this done.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
And I'll get
very
that
much.
stuff back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Are there any administrative approvals or updates we should be aware of?
Yes, Mr. Chair, my apologies for not including these on your agenda like I normally do. I completely missed that this time, and but there were several. Part of why I missed it, you didn't have any last, week, just didn't update the agenda. for you. So just to go through them, 647 on Butler Street, applied for a similar garage door to what they had now that was administratively approved. 880 Howland Street had a couple different applications. They had a freezer issue, a refrigeration issue, with one of their units, so they applied to remove their existing shed, just kind of hidden behind some screening and fencing, and replace it with a cooler, that was administratively approved. Also at 880 Holland Street, they have an existing sign, out, towards the sidewalk. They're looking to do kind of a refresh or replacement for that. That was administratively approved. For Village Square for the new playground, that, it's being proposed there, the Parks and Public Works Committee, was making a request to essentially do like a temporary banner sign, just kind of letting folks know that it's coming. It's kind of a rendering. I think they're finalizing. They switched the design after we initially looked at it, so we'll look at that one again, but their initial design was fine. 344 Lucy Street had previously come to you. They had a few tweaks to their, this was a non-contributing resource next to, near the court. So some of their modifications included, and they had a lot of detail to really support their modifications. Instead of doing the pergola, they requested a shed roof. They're going to move their front stoop slightly over, or actually extend it a little bit further to the east. Add a corbel, and then they were looking at doing different exterior lights. So those modifications were administratively approved. And then 258, 296 Hoffman, that's the church there on the corner. They are doing some repair work to their steps, essentially very similar to what they have there now. That was administratively. So.
And just so you guys know, Ryan always sends me a point of view saying this came in, this feels like an administrative approval because of X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
And I usually confirm that assumption or sometimes it comes here if it's a contributing property that is something that should come here. So thank you. Communication. Do you want to?
Yeah, I have one. So, yeah, so we've been talking off and on about recognition of a thing that we had here on our agenda and approved and moved forward. And I sent you my thoughts on the one it's at Holland and Lucy Street, 820 Holland Street.
Sounds right.
And if Sarah, you could bring this up, and I thought we could, we talked about, publishing and a lot of stuff like that, but I thought, well, maybe if we just at least do once a year, pick one that we thought was noteworthy. And this is this one. So this is 820 Holland Street 4 years ago. It's owned by
Chris and Lisa Timmons.
pardon me?
Chris and Lisa Timmons.
Yeah. And Lisa Gonzalez. And she's been the one that's been on the phone a lot. I don't think Chris was on much.
She was here a couple times on the screen. And once here, I think.
Was he? Okay. All right. So that's what it looked like 4 years ago. And these are crappy pictures. They're from street view. Back next one. There's more. These are just kind of junky pictures, but it just shows what it looked like. So there it is today. And it's pretty finished as far as I can tell. Next one, another view. And the before and after stuff. There's not too much to discuss, but I thought we could talk this around. Keep going. Next one. There's more befores and afters. That garage was brand new. You can see what's left, that corner, and then they cleared that all out. Keep going. They had that patio out front. It used to be called the Moore's Creek Inn. How long was that? And then I think that's it. Is there one more? So I thought we might do is write him a handwritten note and box up one of the ornaments from the historic center. They sell those once a year, or something else. But I'm throwing it out there. If you wanted to pick one, I mean, there might be others.
You're trying to get after the idea that we're all supportive of, which is like honoring someone who kind of keeps at it and tries to do the right thing and has done the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, that had all of our input.
Right.
They came in, a couple of times, and
it's a great example of a property that like really they could have gone south.
Well, that's another corner that you turn and you go,
Right.
Yep.
That's
you know,
right.
when you turn on Lucy Street and then head
Yeah,
onto the river, you go.
You take it also a step further and in addition to acknowledging them, with something publicized that this was done well as far as historical preservation standards.
Yeah, you can add, I mean, that's for discussion, you know, we can start with
Yeah.
small, we can add on as we go on, or we can just say, no, it's a bad idea, because somebody's not gonna be happy.
Well, what I love about the idea as presented is it's kind of a one-to-one thing.
Right.
It's like
Right.
us to
Versus
them,
public.
just to honor and acknowledge, and I'd almost prefer that they share that
Yeah.
as intimately or broadly as they would like to
Or not.
about the partnership. Because if we did something more formal, we might give it more thought. There might be a process that we all engage with of what to do,
Sure.
what properties were great, and be more transparent about that. I think if we're going to publicize it. So
Well, I think we can use words like on behalf.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
we thought it was a good idea to at least
just
recognize
like
you
a small
personally.
token of,
Handwritten note
Yeah.
with a ornament.
I like the idea a lot, and I think one of the things that we want to stress is the collaboration
Yeah.
that they had with this
Yeah.
group. And I think if you take it public and say, they did it really well, I don't want to discourage anybody who maybe came in slightly under the bar,
Yep.
but gave it a try.
Right.
I agree with this idea of just this from us to you, from our house to your house, and
Once a year.
it's just, you know, we appreciate the collaboration and we really like what you've done. The lights that they put on the garage are just really an exceptional touch, I thought. And they were seemed to be very proud about
Yeah, they had a
that.
story behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's good.
those are the kinds of things that I think are nice to wink at. So I would certainly be in favor of this.
yeah, I'd love to make it a more formal thing next year,
Mhm.
like put some meat behind how we talk about it, how we publicize it.
Cause
I
there are
love the
others that are
informality, yeah.
worthy too.
Sure.
So
That's,
Yeah, making it between us and them this time
this time,
is like thoughtful and the right thing to do.
Yeah.
If it goes public, then you get beat with the Facebook stick
yeah,
of
Yeah.
like, you guys thought that was da da da, like, and
That's what I
that
don't-
goes beyond
Yeah.
the intention of.
cause if we put this on Facebook, there'd be people commenting on the color and
Right.
things that are out of our control, or we could like it or not like it individually, doesn't matter. But they did follow the process.
Right. I think it's less about, you know, we're judging the taste versus, you know, the collaboration we
Yeah.
all had.
We can never judge the taste. We have to
That's
just
right.
focus on the process.
Right.
You know, they took a dilapidated property and vastly improved it. So,
Yeah, Chairman Strake, I'm fully in support of this idea. As a matter of fact, I would encourage this activity. I think this is a great idea. And I think with some effort and some planning and time, you could actually, this is something that people would think, I'm gonna really have to step my game up on this when I come to the Historic District Commission. This property particularly, I know Chris and Lisa quite well. They lived in the neighborhood we used to live in Chicago. So when they first bought the house, got to meet them and they came to our block party and I'm hoping a little bit of that encouraged them to come here full time. I don't know. But they've been very respectful. And again, to that point of you drive into town, even though you can tell that it's been updated, it fits right in, even though it's a existing property. So that's why that other property we're talking about tonight, that's kind of the standard I personally set. And so I'm on board with this idea.
Can we, is it appropriate to we never use our funds ever.
ever.
Can we buy that ornament with our funds?
An ornament and some kind of card.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure that would be fun.
Okay,
So,
I can work with you offline and we'll,
chair sign off on the card or something.
yeah.
Unless
I
you
mean,
want
I'm happy
sign
to,
it in some way or something.
I'm happy to do it on behalf of
I
us. You
think
can do it on
one
behalf of us.
person, a personal handwritten note with an ornament.
Awesome.
And why just one?
I don't know.
There's
one
other
order.
properties. Judson
oh,
Heath
like-
comes
oh.
to mind. Other people have done
Just a starting point.
just a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
How
just-
much are, how much?
We've
are the-
been talking about it
Yeah,
all
we've been-
year, and I thought, well, there's something we can do real simple.
Yeah.
And if we get,
I like
if it goes okay and we don't, end up having a pile of trouble because of it, then.
Yeah, we can lean into it next year. I think it's a lovely idea.
No, they
Okay.
did it right.
I'll logistically take it forward with you and we'll touch base.
Okay.
No public or comments on screen or here. Any other commission comments?
Is there an update on the mural?
Yeah, so continued contact with the owner and property manager, who's also the property manager, but also the artist, as you probably recall. So because of the time of year and temperatures, there's some limitations on being able to use certain products and remove the paint and not damage things. And so the property manager had done some testing on a small spot. My understanding is he talked with the manufacturer of the actual paints as well to gather some further detail. As things warm up in the spring, he's aiming for that time period. So that's the short version, I'll say that.
Appreciate it.
So, yep.
Thank
So
you.
And I just,
Is the long version gonna include a technical approval of the process that's gonna be used instead of someone saying that it was okay to use this and then all of a sudden it destroyed the brick? I mean, you need to have something that's agreed upon that someone who's involved in a professional in restoration would say, yes, that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah,
Because
Ryan's,
so far,
Ryan's been
everything
great.
that he's done is not what you're supposed to do.
So I reached out to a restoration company for antique brick.
Good.
And asked them about the process, asked them about their availability and their schedule, asked them about cost, asked them about weather. Asked them about sustainable products that were non-toxic, that could be like everything.
Good.
The main thing I learned was there is a really long lead time. They're backed up. So I shared all that with Ryan to share with the applicant and the owner. I think the owner really needs to play a role in this. And they're aware of that, mostly because I didn't want the spring to come and then it gets warm and then we schedule it for fall or spring of 26. So trying to do our part to inform the applicant of knowledge of, helping be in partnership, what could be done. Ryan's communicated all that and he's done a really good job following up and trying to be as helpful as possible.
And confirming the applicant in this case is the owner of the building?
The applicant is the artist, not the owner.
and the property manager essentially, but
Okay.
the owner's been included in the correspondence, has been committed to making sure that things are followed through.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry I wasn't at those last two meetings, but I appreciate you guys, what you did in those last two meetings when we heard this issue. But yeah, in both of those meetings, the applicant was the artist, the owner was not present in those meetings. That has been CC'd on all the communication.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other commission comments?
At the risk of offending everybody by all the talking I've done tonight, one thing just to ask about is any city-owned assets, properties, structures within the historic district are subject to our rules, right? So you may have heard word that there's some discussion about the completion of the Blue Star Trail up on Blue Star. There's been some discussion, they don't have all the details yet, about moving the pallet sign. That is in the historic district as far as I know. So just more of an FYI, more information to come on that.
Sorry, Russ, what sign?
The pallet sign. I just want to put it
Yeah.
out there because there's been a lot of discussion, probably just in the grapevine and so forth around town. This was brought up at the council meeting Monday night, and I personally have asked as a council member to hear more information about what's being discussed.
Terrific. I appreciate you thinking about that.
Just to clarify just to make sure I understood, when we say move the pallet sign, it's not removed from that location, it's moving.
Yeah.
Some things, to make room for the trail, but all of that is still being worked on and certainly. So like we have, City Hall and Village Square and other projects, it'll be involved as well.
So when we read that it's either painted orange or set on fire or thrown in the
Well,
river.
yeah, it's a
we'll know
chance
that that's
to,
lost.
I would say it's a chance to have better integration with the trail that's gonna be going by.
Yep.
Cause you can pretty much say a lot of people are gonna be stopping and wanting to get a picture taken with the Calais sign, right? And right now, you take your life in your hands when you
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Terrific. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion about that idea?
I'm sorry.
Will did. Will,
Oh, well, geez.
all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. And please join John and I for a cocktail and a nosh, super casual and easy over at our house.